Oh yeah, I mean it's cheaper than buying the book when you have to take the class, let alone when you have to pay for tuition and that share of your rent for that semester. It's a ton of savings. So now about how well you have to do. This is the worst question. If you don't know which schools you're going to, nobody can answer that for you because different schools have widely differing policies on AP credit. Some schools, no credit, no questions, no conditions. Like, I believe it's Harvard, AP doesn't exist. If it's not Harvard, another one of those Ivy League schools, they don't recognize the letters AP. No conversation. When I went to UCSB, I walked in having completed 2 quarters worth of credit. So the second quarter, I was a sophomore. In my case, I had 8 classes waived because of my AP exams.
What AP?
English, U.S. history, calculus, bio, physics, chemistry, Spanish.
Spanish, I bet that was tough.
What else is there? You would be shocked. We native speakers don't know the rules of our speech. Like, I don't know what it's called. I still don't know what subjunctive means. Like, I can speak it. Yeah, I'm in good company, right? If somebody uses the tense, I can repeat it. I think it's would, like if you would do something, right?
If I were to.
What?
If I were to.
If I were to? Okay. So I can conjugate that in Spanish now that someone has said that to me, but the subjunctive tense of word so-and-so, like, when I look at that, I know about as much of that as anyone who doesn't speak Spanish. So the conversational part was no problem. Reading comprehension was pretty mellow. My writing is about 3rd grade level. That's when I left Argentina. So that was a challenge. And then like the rules and the nomenclature for the language were really difficult. But anyway, those were my exams. There was another one.
You passed the Spanish.
Oh yeah, I did nail it. But it did take some studying. So there was another one too, I can't remember.
Spanish lit.
No, might have been world history or what else is there? Oh, econ government. I did those.
What does APES normally get you out of?
So here's the next big question mark. It depends what your major is at a lot of schools. So if they're going to give you credit, it might only be for general education requirements outside your major. So for a lot of students, you'll get AP calculus credit if you're an English major, but you won't get any credit out of your math requirements if you're a math major, because they want you to follow their sequence to build up to your major. So in my case, I got my general education English out of the way. I've never taken English at the university. I got my language requirements out of the way. I never had to take any language at the university. But because I had to do bio as a prereq for my own majors, AP Bio was counted as units, but not as a course crossed off for my major. Different schools will have different rules. And if you want, talk to your counselor about this, but the bottom line is it's just $89 to save thousands down the road. Just go for it. Another thing about whether or not you take the AP exam is that a lot of you have a very unrealistic impression of how you are selected for university. Many of you have been badgered to pursue perfection academically. Just so you know, you're not going to look like a perfect academic candidate, and there are a lot of those out there anyway. Like, there are thousands of straight A students with a perfect SAT score. Thousands. I'm not exaggerating. The point is, those kids don't necessarily get into school that often. You'd be shocked how many times kids with unbelievable numbers get turned down. Unbelievable numbers are not really that impressive. People don't mind if you fail as long as you've shown that you tried. And most high school kids, they hear you say that, they go, I understand the language, but then they don't believe it. I got nothing to win by pushing this agenda. The more students I encourage to take the AP test, the lower my pass rate becomes, and other teachers criticize me for it. I don't care. If anything, don't take the AP test, whatever. But for your benefit, failing an AP test is not counted against you. There's a zillion reasons why you could fail. They don't interpret that as you being a less worthy college student. They interpret that as, who knows? Maybe they got dumped that day. Maybe they were sick that day. Maybe their mom and dad were getting a divorce. Maybe they just tried something new and very unlikely and they ended up failing. The universities cannot interpret that clearly as you having been a bad student. If you fail everything, then they're like, maybe you're not really good at school. But if you're a generally good candidate who failed an AP test, who cares? I failed U.S. history. Don't be afraid of the failure. It will not count against you. Don't be intimidated by the $89. It's way cheaper than the alternative. You get out of class that day. If nothing else, you can ditch periods 1 through 4 once, legitimately. Only cost you $89.
You should have started with that.
Yeah, I should have started with that. Yeah, you'd be able to ditch my class that day. And you know, after the AP test, I used to give all my students a questionnaire, and one of the questions was, how many hours did you study? And so, for a long time, I used to run this correlation between 3 variables. And there's about an 80 to 90% prediction reliability. Here you go. If this is your exam average before extra credit, this will be your predicted AP score, given that you study this color amount of hours. So average amount of preparation is 10 to 15 hours, 1 to 2 a day for the couple of weeks before.
Yeah. So that's like after everything's done, just like, okay, now I'm studying for the AP exam, 10 to 15 hours?
Right.
That's like an hour.
Right, so it's actually like, I seem to think that this is attainable. I will give you an unbelievable number of resources. All the essay questions they've ever asked, plus all the keys to all the answers. All the multiple choice exams that they've ever released. A huge study packet. A CD that has thousands of flashcards to operate on PowerPoint or Keynote. So you can have digital flashcards on your smartphone or on your home computer. I give you extra credit for doing guided reviews. So there's an extra credit assignment to find all the important places in environmental science. Another extra credit assignment to do a bunch of practice math problems. Another extra credit assignment to do the multiple choice questions or 4 essay questions or to grade the questions. I give you all this extra credit, all this encouragement, all this paperwork, all this information, time in class. Just so you know, my pass rate is between 69.5 and 73% the last 5 years, which for this class puts SBHS in roughly the 10 percentile mark. 90% of U.S. schools do worse. About 10% of U.S. schools do better than SBHS in terms of passing or failing. The most common grade worldwide is a 1 out of 5 in APES. The most common grade for SBHS students is a 4 out of 5 in APES.
It seems weird that many people are, I guess I'd say, unprepared to take the test.
You know, all kinds of weird things happen. By coincidence, my 2As in period 2 had like 100-some% in my class, and both of them didn't pass it. I mean, it was sort of a shocker. I've seen students go all the way from here to here. I've seen the opposite. Some of these kids pull off one of these. But usually, no, hold on. Usually, I know I'm doing something right with my exams because usually it's kind of across the board. And so you can decide for yourself just what you're going to do. And if you're down here, you know you got to do some extra preparation to get up there. By the way, it is surprising that so many kids fail. And I've had total shockers, like students who have exceptional academic ability to fail. You know, sometimes kids get sloppy and they forget the full sentence name. Oops. Sometimes kids just get shaken up or they get like super into it and they don't sleep enough and then like they don't eat right and they just show up and like they're all nervous and scrambled and their belly's all like diarrhea and like things like stuff happens, you know, like really unpleasant, ugly things happen. But if I could say one last thing, I honestly think that every single person in this room, I honestly think that every single, except for Danielle, could pass the AP test. For some of you, it would take more time, or a lot more time than Danielle's case. But I really, truly believe that if you decide this is important, you can pull it off. And the economics are obvious. Like, a lot of kids, I had one student who was like, oh no, I'm going to go to Yale, they don't accept APs, I'm not doing any. Then when he got there, he was like, I don't like all these people. I'm going to go to some other school. And it turns out that the other school where he transferred did take APs. And he was like, oh, dang, I was doing really well in APES. I should have taken that one. It would have bailed me out of this class. Like, even if you're going to a school that doesn't accept them, do it anyway. They might give you something in other parts of your education. Yeah, I mean, you know, your parents, like, if your daddy loses his job and all of a sudden you can't go to that dream school and you got to go to some local school, maybe then it'll help. I'm just saying, like, it's a cheap insurance policy. And your odds should be very good. We'll finish the book. We have the best book. Like, I think we can do this. There are many APES books, and this is easily the best one. Yeah, I mean, Ravenberg is okay. This one's kind of cool. I like that one. Yeah.
What's the difference between AP credit and CC credit?
Again, it depends on your schools. CCs are usually aligned to that state's university. So almost all schools in the UC have known transferability for city college courses in that state.
Like if you had taken 8 CC classes, you would have been a sophomore as well. Like instead of taking 8.
Well, I could have chosen 8 CC classes that I would have known up front would transfer to the UC system. Okay. Anything else about any of the announcements so far? And any questions about the AP exam? Yeah. Just 3 hours of testing time, plus about a half hour of breaks and instructions. So usually kids get out right around 11:50, starting at 8 a.m. Okay. It is exactly quadruple the volume of one of my unit exams. So 100 multiple choice and quadruple the time, 90 minutes. Then 4 essay questions and quadruple the time, 90 minutes. So it's the same pace you've done in my class, it's just a marathon instead of a heavy run. Anybody else? Yeah.
Is there essay questions like yours with like AB?
Exactly. And they're graded the same way.
And they're also
Yeah.
And they're all set in Springfield.
Are you serious?
But they actually.
I believe so.
Whoa!
I believe so. I can verify. If it's not Springfield, it's another place, and it's always the same.
So I'm very
Do they have sections
relatives of how you do yours. That's going to be
Yes. What?
They have sexy and brilliant leaders in Springfield.
They do not have sexy and brilliant leaders. All of those went to Caballero. Okay. we need parents to help us with our after-school environmental film series. So if your parents might be willing, please look up, send an